Hey everyone, welcome to this week's video on the Dueling Network Administration exam for 2013. We've been working on this exam for a long time, and we figure this YouTube account is a great way for us to help you guys pass it and become an admin in the future. So I'm here today with fellow administrator Alex, anti-TCB, and I'm Asher Potter. So hi Alex.
Hello.
And let's start. What we're going to do is we're going to go through all of the different, basically competencies that the admin exam tests that we basically expect admins to be able to master in order to properly serve users. And you should know that there may be stuff we might not cover that could be on the exam, so don't come to us later saying, "Oh, you didn't go over something. It was on the exam and it surprised me." Um, but we'll do our best to give you
That
enough
might have
information.
sounded a little bit intimidating, but honestly, it's not. Just focus on researching basically really a lot of the basics of the game, stuff that you should probably already know if you play competitively, and just read up on things like the rules and punishments for DN, and you should be fine.
All right, so on to our first section, which is problem solving card text. On Konami's website, on Konami's article website, they have 7 different articles regarding problem-solving card text on the recent cards in the past couple of years that they've made, and it's basically rulings on the card itself. So you can imagine how important it is for admins to understand it. It helps you make instant rulings that are 100% correct and 100% official consistently. So it's really important to read them. We've got all the links over here, but you should do your own research into getting onto the site and going through the articles.
Further going into problem-solving card text, we have examples of cards that already exist, plus a few things that we've constructed on our own, just so that we can see how well you do with things that already exist and how well you do with problem-solving card text that may exist in the future.
Yeah, it's really cool to be prepared because problem-solving card text is unique in that it does give you that ability to get rulings for stuff that there are no rulings for, even as time goes on.
And the biggest thing about this is it isn't completely done. It's still a constantly evolving thing. New terms for problem-solving card text come out per probably every single set.
And our next thing is fast effects and fast effect, timing and how fast effects work. If you have never heard of a fast effect, you should really go into Konami's advanced gameplay section, advanced rulings on the website, and I got a picture of the flowchart here, but you should definitely check it out and read it more in depth if you're not already familiar with it. It explains how players basically have the options to activate their effects and their opponents, and who gets the option to do their zone first, and when you can do certain effects, when you can't. So that's really important for everybody to be familiar with.
It's not anything new. It's probably something you're very comfortable with, but we're just giving a name to it, so it might kind of confuse you at first. But again, if you actually actively play on DN, you already know what we're talking about.
Yeah, and terminology is important, so you should familiarize yourself with that. When you're explaining it to players, you really need to be able to use proper terminology. So our next thing is attack and defense modification. Attack and defense modification can get really complicated and really convoluted, even though the cards themselves seem simple the first time you read them. They basically can cause crazy situations once you combine multiples together, and you get into stuff like original attack versus regular attack.
Continuous versus lingering, freezing versus non-freezing.
Yeah, just there's so many different types of attack, and all these cards that work with attack and modify it differently. And once you hash them all together, some override each other, some don't even work at all. So definitely do some research there and check a few of the different. Try to see how many different cards you can identify that modify attack and defense, and say, hey, this has a subtle, change in card text from this card. This one says original, this one doesn't say original, so this one does something different, and be able to recognize that.
What's next?
Excuse me?
What's next?
Oh, summoning mechanics. Yeah. Summoning mechanics is fun. It's basically all about summons that can be negated, summons that can't be, monsters that can be summoned by other cards like Monster Reborn or whatever after they've been summoned, and some monsters that can't be. You basically, you got to be able to look at a card, and just by seeing the card text and comparing it to other cards, be able to identify, oh yeah, this card, you can only summon it this exact way, you can't summon it any other way, but this card, on the other hand, you can summon and just be familiar with different ways of summoning monsters.
Another example is like whether you can summon this card after its summon is negated or not by something, say, like Solemn Warning.
Let's see, what's next? Oh, Dueling Network rules. Oh, I love this.
Wonderful. You should. You wrote the entire thing.
So, Dueling Network rules, you would think is one of the most important things for admins to know because it's the primary thing you've got to enforce. And a lot of people are not very familiar with them for whatever reason, but they are very closely based on Konami's own rules and policy. The differences are that when Konami suspends a player, they do it themselves through their own committee. So we're not really privy to exactly how they break down, different suspension lengths. So we have our own system for that with ban lengths. So that's something unique that admins really need to be familiar with. So you should check that out. So you know if a player does this ban-worthy offense, how long they should be banned for, whether they should even be banned for it at all.
Nothing too complicated. All the information is readily available on our forums.
Yep. And you can even look at the link while you're taking the test, so it shouldn't be too difficult. Next thing is our admin manual. We have a manual that we expect admins to follow when they're taking calls, basically with everything they do on their account. And because it's really important that admins follow a consistent set of policies, similar to judges in real life following policies. So it's a little bit big. You probably should take the time to read it and go over it before taking the test, definitely, because you might miss something if you just try to skim it in the middle of the exam.
It's always a good thing to refresh yourself on everything when you're not crunched for time while taking the exam. Just whenever you have something that you need to do, just go and look up the admin manual, rules, whatever. Get it burned into your memory. It's nice to be able to figure out a situation right off the bat exactly how to handle it.
And even if you've seen it before, the Dueling Network policy documents, the manual and rules, they change. They're evolving over time as we uncover different, maybe problems with them that we have to update for the times, or new policy documents that influence them. So you should definitely review it if you haven't seen it recently.
Or even new scenarios with rule breaking that we hadn't encountered or even thought about before that we have to figure out how to settle in a consistent way.
Yeah. Next we have Konami Penalties. Because of the fact that Dueling Network policy is based so much on Konami policy, we really need admins to know how Konami structures their own penalty system so that they understand our system and they can even apply beyond that to sometimes crazy situations will come up, they'll be able to deal with them.
Which is a great thing considering, well, as long as I've been on DN, it's actually helped my judging ability in real life. And I'm very thankful for that just because of how very closely, well, not closely, but how you sometimes get situations where the Konami policy would apply onto DN. It's nice to have some way to get that experience outside of judging an event.
And you can find all of Konami's policy documents on their website in the gameplay section. And they're definitely a good read. If you play in real life, then they're even more helpful to you because they'll definitely enhance your gameplay and help you understand, the judges who are really an important part of tournaments. So we also want you to know Konami Policy. With there, you have a TCG tournament policy, Yu-Gi-Oh tournament policy. Both documents are on the test, and they also contain tons of information that influences ours or applies to games on our website because it's the same game, really. After
Next up.
that, oh, sorry.
Next up.
Yeah, excuse mechanics. Can't really give you tons of sources for this other than the rulebook. Surprisingly, most people don't realize that the rulebook contains so much information. It's just subtle things, just like in the card text, little words that change so much. Even like the order in which you seize a monster. Definitely something you should pay attention to. Just, I guess, go through the rulebook, try to look up a few Xyz monsters, a few Xyz rulings, maybe some unique ones, and just be familiar with them because it can get a little bit complicated, and Xyz monsters are very popular in the game.
Nothing too intimidating. We've had Xyz monsters for a while now. I'm sure everyone is well adjusted to how they work.
Yeah. Next, there's built-in summons, monster summons that don't use the chain. People also call these inherent summons.
I think that's about it.
Yeah, I guess there's not much else to say about that. Just if you're not familiar with what we're talking about, you don't know the difference between a monster that summons itself through an effect that activates and uses the chain versus a monster that summons itself inherently with a built-in summoning mechanic, then that's something you really need to know because that comes up all the time.
Next up, my favorite section, Battle Replay.
Is your favorite, really?
No, it was terrible.
Well, this is another one that I can't really give you much beyond the rulebook, but this is something that looks simple at first glance, but it can get a little bit complicated if you're not careful. And if you don't think about when exactly replays can occur, when they can occur, and even what exactly a replay is. So you should check that out and familiarize yourself with it. There probably are other links that you can find out if you Google for them, but you should be very careful when using links to study that are not from official Yu-Gi-Oh resources.
Agreed. Always find a legitimate source for all the information that you find about this game, especially for something like replay. Believe me, I actually will mess up replay questions occasionally when I'm not paying attention.
Yeah, you've got to be careful. You don't want to just load up some random blog and take it as gospel. You have to look at the source at the bottom, and if it doesn't have one, you might want to stay away unless you know the author. So next, missing the timing. Now this one is actually a very, very famous mechanic, I think, in terms of its complexity, and it's something that we see players, judges, admins all the time messing up. So there is a little bit in the rulebook about it, but
not quite enough.
Yeah, I guess. So you might want to do your own research with that. There are tons of articles you can read. So you should definitely be able to find something consistent. There are articles on our own forums about it, I think. And
I think it was the last problem solving card text article went more into about it while I was talking over problem solving card text conjunctions.
Yeah, so definitely check out those that conjunction article as well as the other ones. But yeah, if it helps you with missing and timing, it's really important. And it's basically the concept is that it's for optional effects because if it's a mandatory effect, it has to happen. And but you have to know that it's for only certain effects, and which effects it applies to, and which effects it doesn't, and also which scenarios cause it to happen.
Honestly, that one's my favorite part of the game.
Missing timing?
I enjoy missing timing. Always keeps me on my toes.
Well, to each their own. Next up, negation mechanics. There's a ton of different cards that negate stuff, but all these cards pretty much work differently, between Skill Drain, Solemn Warning, Lightning Imprisoning Mirror.
Dark Ruler Hades.
That's also an interesting negator. But yeah, these cards, they all negate different things, even though they, at first glance, they might look like they can negate pretty much any type of effect. They can't. They can only negate certain things. So you should be familiar with the different types and what they can and can't negate.
Leave next are costs.
Yep. Knowing the difference between a cost and effect is very, very important. Pretty much all this stuff is important, but this is also facilitated by problem-solving card text, which helps you identify what a cost is in a card between what a cost and what an effect after knowing the difference between them, and it'll help you apply it for all future cards. So definitely look into that.
Next, simultaneous effects go on chain or Seagok.
No, I was going to say Seagok.
I'm sorry, I stole it from you.
But yeah, this is actually one of my favorites. All of these effects trying to activate at the same time and figuring out how the chain is built. Once you can figure out how the chain is built, that pretty much does your whole job for you. Because once you know how it's built, you know how it resolves.
It's great that there's this part in the game where this huge chain will just be built out of nowhere. And it's all done automatically for you.
Yep, just once you understand the set of rules that decide how the chain is built, you'll be able to apply it to every situation in which this stuff happens. And you should be careful because there are subtle differences between the TCG and the OCG on this, and all of the rulings in the admin tests are TCG based.
Next up, my actual favorite part of the game, the damage step.
And the battle phase. Don't forget the battle phase.
No one cares about the battle phase. All the fun shenanigans happen in the damage step.
I don't care about the battle phase. But yeah, you really need to know damage step, battle phase, all phases. But the damage step we mentioned specifically because of how convoluted it is. There is very little official documentation on the damage step. The only official stuff you can find is from actual card text and a few of the remaining official card rulings. So you might be able to get some information from unofficial sources, but you're probably best off just using those as a guideline or a stepping stool in order to get to the point where you understand, by reading cards, the order in which they activate or apply their effects in the damage step between different actions happening.
It's an elegant part of the game, but it's really complicated. Proceed with caution.
Admins really need to be on their game for damage step questions.
Definitely. Or I will smack them.
And phase mechanics. Right after battle phase. Yeah, this is just for general phases. Knowing how it's broken down, fast effect chart will really help you in this one. Players need to be able to know who can do what when during the phase, what happens first. So understanding how phases work will help you help them.
And finally, activation legality. I know many a time where I've been at an actual event and a person will call me over saying, "Judge, can I activate this? Can I activate this? Can I activate this?" Same thing happens on DN. It's an important thing to be able to figure out when a person can activate something, either when it would tie into either fast effects timing, or just if a card has met its activation timing or not.
Yep, so there you have it. We've pretty much gone through the different categories that are on the admin exam. Maybe a few tricky questions here or there, but overall this is it. Remember, you can only take the exam once. Please study hard before taking it. I know that I'm not going to be doing another one of these probably ever because it's just so much work. But if you're really interested in becoming an admin, put in the time. The test is not too easy, I don't think.
We want people to pass, but we also want people to be competent.
Yep, really important to have good admins, and hopefully we'll have a lot of new admins soon. So, good luck. Hope you do well.
Study hard.
I guess until next time.